people from minority groups in Bristol to vote in this year's general election. Figures published in 2010 suggest ethnic minorities were 3 times less likely to be registered to vote than white Britons. A public forum was actually held in Bristol today to discuss this issue. It was attended by Kulveer Ranger, a former senior advisor to London Mayor Boris Johnson, who also serves on the board of Bristol's European Green Capital team. Well, I asked him earlier why this is happening.
There's many answers to this question, but what I would say is ethnic minority votes, and in fact anyone's vote, is going to count more than ever in this election. I think the message here is that all general elections, we could say, are equal. I think the one coming up is going to be more equal than others, because there's a generation of questions that are going to be answered by the next government that will affect all of us. If you're not signed up to vote, if you're not sure, if you have questions, I'm someone, as a turban-wearing Sikh, who's been involved in politics and with the Conservative Party for over a decade. I've fought a general election. I've been vice chairman of the party nationally. I've worked for the Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, run transport, been involved, got my hands dirty, roll my sleeves up. But I know they look at me as an Asian and go, oh, that's interesting. And I wanted to share some of that with them so that they could feel and understand why they can be part of it and why they should vote. First and foremost, vote.
Do they feel disenfranchised with politics? Do they not feel they're part of it? Is that the fundamental problem?
I think there has been a distance between various people from minority communities and what we would say is the mainstream. Where the minorities have always felt accepted, capable, perceived glass ceilings rather than actual glass ceilings. And that comes down to politics as well. We don't have as many role models in this country of black and Asian backgrounds as frontline leading politics. There's a few coming through now, and Sajid Javid, who's a Secretary of State for Culture, is one of those leading lights. But it's taken quite a while. And I think that's why it's taken a bit of time for communities to feel comfortable and part of the political process.
Yeah, but those communities also feel less likely to be canvassed by the main parties. So you've got a role to play in this. Labour have got a role to play, Lib Dems, etc., etc.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the penny has and should have dropped for all political parties that when elections are tight, and this one will be, all people will matter and their votes will count, which is why parties are having to go outside maybe their comfort zone and engage with diverse groups, people with different backgrounds, listen to them, understand their views, and get them engaged into what's going to happen in May the 7th.
It's interesting to say move outside their comfort zone. I mean, they've got to move into the 21st century because ethnic minorities and a diverse community is where we are in the major cities and towns.
Geoff, you're absolutely right, you know, and it feels a bit difficult saying that they should come into the 21st century, but it's very easy for everybody to stay in talking to the same people that they've always spoken to. You know, it's kind of natural. It's a warm bath you get into. You replay a message, you hear it back, everyone reassures each other. You don't get too many challenges. Politics is about listening. It is about being challenged on the policies that you're looking to implement. And if it's one of those things that politicians have to go out and meet new people, the kinds that they haven't engaged with before, well, that's only better for British politics. And
in the wider perspective, how do you increase the turnout? I mean, the Scottish referendum was an amazing thing, I felt, for politics. The turnout was sensational. The interest levels right the way down into the teenage years was quite amazing. How does everyone make sure there's a greater turnout for the election in May?
I think this general election is going to be a seminal one for a generation coming forward.
You know that, but people who don't know that, how do you engage them?
So there are big questions on the table. There is a question about how do we fix the finances, not now of the country, but for the future. Why do I say that? And people will be sick and tired of hearing about the deficit, but let's just play that out. NHS is a big conversation. How do we fund the NHS, not now, but for the future? How do we deal with the welfare system? How do we build infrastructure, railways, roads? That, you know, I know Bristolians are screaming out for how do we improve the public transport in this city? All these questions will be answered by this next election and politicians who will come in then. This is a moment for everyone to have their say. On May the 7th, put your vote down, and hopefully we'll get a government that then can deal with the big questions.
Well, make sure you vote. That's the message from Kulveer Ranger, who was in Bristol earlier today.